It needs a third. Oh my goodness. Maybe I can. I can get over with one of these. Really? It needs a third one? Well, that's too bad. Yeah, like the things that I do really find fun about this game, I wish it would be more complex, or like, you know, the depth of it would go a little more. Like the combat's
maybe the
fun,
split
but
cam
it's like
driver.
very surface level. Even like the upgrades are like very
Let's do
basic.
this one. It's a little bit more bumped up.
There's not a lot to it. The exploration is cool and fun, but you know, it's
okay. Well, hi everyone.
there's not a lot to that
read
either.
Siddhartha's book. And let's see which one is better.
Oh, we got another quest here.
Okay, we have 48.
Uh-oh.
I don't know why the resolution is kind of lower.
Where'd you save Tushy and Donna from Cave? Thanks, Dave.
Oops. Okay, well, we don't know how it's gonna go, but let me just start. We're doing the Siddhartha's Herman Hesse. Let me turn off this and just adjust the screen a little bit more. A little bit more close to real life too. Alright, Herman Hesse. It's like the 4th chapter. It is called kind of like right here, Gotama. In the town of Savatthi, every child knew the name of the illustrious Buddha. Let's get closer. Just want to get the audio really loud. Yeah. Okay. If there's anyone in chat, that'd be nice, but let's see. Alright, in the town of Savatthi, every child knew the name of... Oh, it might be that too. Alright, right there, it might be 6 decibels. Town of Savatthi, every child knew the name of the illustrious Buddha. Every house was ready to fill the alms bowls of Gotama. Slightly begging disciples near the town was Gotama's favorite abode. The Jatayana grove, which the rich merchant Anatha Bindika, a great devotee of the illustrious one, had presented to him and his followers. The 2 young ascetics, in their search for Gotama's abode, had been referred to this district by tales and answers to their questions, and on their arrival in Savatthi, food was offered to them immediately, at the first house in front of whose door they stood silently begging. They partook of food, and Siddhartha asked the lady who handed him the food, "Good lady, you should never much like to know where the Buddha, the illustrious one, dwells. For we are 2 samanas from the forest and have come to see the perfect one and hear his teachings from his own lips." The woman said, "You have come to the right place, O samanas from the forest. The illustrious one sojourns in Jetavana, in the garden of Antapindika. You may spend the night there, pilgrims, for there is enough room for the numerous people who flock here to the teachings from his lips. The audio's not too loud. Then Govinda rejoiced and happily said, "Ah, then we have reached our goal, and our journey's at the end. But tell us, mother pilgrims, do you know the Buddha? Have you seen him with your own eyes?" The woman said, "I have seen the illustrious one many times. On many a day I've seen him walk through the streets, silently in a yellow cloak, and silently out of his alms bowl at the house doors, and return with his filled bowl." Govinda listened enchanted and wanted to ask many more questions and hear much more. But Siddhartha reminded him that it was time to go. They expressed their thanks and departed, and it was hardly necessary to inquire the way, for quite a number of pilgrims and monks from Gotama's followers were on the way to Jetavana. They arrived there at night. They were continually new arrivals. There was a stir of voices from them, and requesting and obtaining. I'm so curious why I don't have any chat from YouTube. Sorry, it's like weird. Normally I get like viewers. So let's go see. I guess it's just pretty dead. I don't know. There's one person watching. I guess it's me. I have no idea. Maybe I should change the coloring. Let's see. Turn off this like more thing. Hard to make sure. Anyways, I guess it's what it is. Govinda listened, enchanted, and wanted to ask many more questions and hear much more. But Siddhartha reminded him that it was time to go. They expressed their thanks and departed. It was hardly necessary to inquire the way, for quite a number of pilgrims and monks from Gotama's followers were on the way to Jetavana. When they arrived there at night, there were continual new revivals. There was a stir of voices from them, requesting and obtaining shelter. The two samanas, who were used to life in the forest, quickly and quietly found shelter and stayed there till morning. At sunrise, they were astounded to see the large number of believers and curious people who had spent the night there. Monks in yellow robes wandered along the paths of a magnificent grove. Here and there they sat under trees, lost in meditation or engaged in spirited talk. The shady gardens were like town swarming with bees. Most of the monks departed with their alms bowls in order to obtain food for the midday meal, the only one of the day. Even the Buddha himself went begging in the morning. Siddhartha saw him, recognized him immediately, as if it were pointed out to him by a god. He saw him bearing an alms bowl, quietly leaving the place, an unassuming man in a yellow cowl. "Look," said Siddhartha softly to Govinda. "There's the Buddha." Govinda looked attentively at the monk in the yellow cowl, who could not be distinguished in any way from the hundreds of other monks. Yet Govinda soon recognized him. Yes, it was he. They followed him and watched him. The Buddha went quietly on his way, lost in thought. His peaceful countenance was neither happy nor sad. He seemed to be smiling gently inwardly. With a secret smile, not unlike that of a healthy child, he walked along, peacefully, quietly. He wore his gown and walked along exactly like the other monks, but his face and his peaceful downward glance, and his peaceful downward hanging hand, and every finger of his hand spoke of peace, spoke of completeness, sought nothing, imitated nothing, reflected a continuous quiet and unfading light, an invulnerable peace. And so Gotama wandered into town to obtain alms, and the two samanas recognized him only by his complete peacefulness of demeanor, by the stillness of his form in which there was no seeking, no will, no counterfeit, no effort, only light and peace. Today we will hear the teachings from his own lips, said Govinda. Siddhartha did not reply. He was not very curious about the teachings. He did not think they would teach him anything new. He, as well as Govinda, had heard the substance of the Buddha's teachings, if only from second and third-hand reports, but he looked attentively at Gotama's head, at his shoulders, at his feet, at his still downward hanging hand. And it seemed to him that in every joint of every finger of his hand there was knowledge. They spoke, breathed, radiated truth. This might be a better view. Never had Siddhartha seemed a man so much. Never had he loved a man so much. They both followed the Buddha into the town and returned in silence. They themselves intended to abstain from food that day. They saw Gotama return and saw him take his meal within the circle of his disciples. What he ate would not have satisfied a bird, and saw him withdraw to the shade of the mango tree. In the evening, however, when the heat abated and everyone in the camp was alert and gathered together, they heard the Buddha preach. They heard his voice, and that this also was perfect, quiet and full of peace. Gotama talked about suffering, the origin of suffering, the way to release from suffering. Life was pain. The world was full of suffering, but the path to the release from suffering had been found. There was salvation for those who went the way of the Buddha. The illustrious one spoke in a soft but firm voice, taught the four main points, taught the eightfold path. Patiently he covered the usual method of teaching with examples and repetition. Clearly and quietly his voice was carried to his listeners, like a light, like a star in the heavens. I should increase the sound a little bit. Yeah. When the Buddha had finished, it was already night. Many pilgrims came forward and asked to be accepted into the community, and the Buddha accepted them and said, "You have listened well to the teachings. Join us then. Walk in bliss. Put an end to the suffering." Govinda, the shy one, also stepped forward and also said, "I also wish to pledge my allegiance to the illustrious one and his teachings." He asked to be taken into the community and was accepted. As soon as the Buddha had withdrawn from the night, Govinda turned to Siddhartha and said eagerly, "Siddhartha, it is not for me to reproach you. We have both listened to the illustrious one, and we have both heard his teachings. Govinda has listened to the teaching and has accepted them. But you, my dear friend, will you not also tread the path to salvation? Will you delay? Will you still wait? When he heard Govinda's words, Siddhartha awakened as if from sleep. He looked at Govinda's face for a long time, and then he spoke softly, and there was no mockery in his voice. Govinda, my friend, you have taken the step. You have chosen the path, your path. You have always been my friend. Govinda, you've always gone a step behind me. Often I've thought, will Govinda ever take a step without me from his own conviction? Now you are a man and you have chosen your own path. May you go along it to the end, my friend. May you find salvation. Govinda, who did not yet fully understand, repeated his question impatiently. Speak, my dear friend. Say that you also cannot do other than swear allegiance to the Buddha. Siddhartha placed his hand on Govinda's shoulder. You have heard my blessing, Govinda. I repeat it. May you travel this path to the end. May you find salvation. In the moment, Govinda realized that his friend was leaving him, and he began to weep. Siddhartha, he cried. Siddhartha spoke gently to him. Do not forget, Govinda, that you now belong to the Buddha's holy men. You have renounced home and parents. You have renounced origin and property. You have renounced your own will. You have renounced friendship. This is what the teachings preach. This is the will of the illustrious one. That is what you wished yourself. Tomorrow, Govinda, I will leave you. For a long time, the friend wandered through the woods, then lay down for a long time, but could not sleep. Govinda pressed his friend again and again to tell him why he would not follow the Buddha's teachings, what flaw he found in them, but each time Siddhartha waved him off. Be at peace, Govinda. The illustrious one's teachings are very good. How could I find a flaw in them? See, and check both chats. Early in the morning, one of the Buddha's followers, one of his oldest monks, went through the garden and called him. All of the new people who had sworn their allegiance to the teachings, in order to place upon them the yellow robe and instruct them in the first teachings and duties of their order. Thereupon Govinda tore himself away, embraced the friend of his youth, and drew on the monk's robe. Siddhartha wandered through the grove, deep in thought. There he met Gotama, the illustrious one, and as he greeted him respectfully, and the Buddha's expression was so full of goodness and peace, the young man plucked up courage and asked the illustrious one permission to speak to him. Silently, the illustrious one nodded his permission. Siddhartha said, Yesterday, O illustrious one, I had the pleasure of hearing your wonderful teachings. I came afar with my friend to hear you, and now my friend will remain with you. He has sworn allegiance to you. I, however, am continuing my pilgrimage anew. As you wish, said the illustrious one politely. My talk is perhaps too bold, continued Siddhartha. But I do not wish to leave the illustrious one without sincerely communicating to him my thoughts. Will the illustrious one hear me a little longer? Silently, the Buddha nodded his consent. Siddhartha said, O illustrious one, in one thing above all I have reminded your teachings. Everything is completely clear and proved. You show the world as a complete, unbroken chain, an eternal chain, linked together by cause and effect. Never has it been presented so clearly. Never has it been so irrefutably demonstrated. Surely every Brahmin's heart must beat more quickly when through your teachings he looks at the world. Completely coherent, without a loophole, clear as crystal, not dependent on chance, not dependent on gods, whether it is good or evil, whether life in itself is pain or pleasure, whether it is uncertain that it might perhaps be, this is not important, but the unity of the world, the coherence of all events, the embracing of the big and the small from the same stream, from the same law of cause, of becoming and dying. This shines clearly from your exalted teachings, O perfect one, but according to your teachings, this unity and consequence and all things is broken in one place. Through a small gap there streams in this world of unity something strange, something anew, something that was not there before, and that you cannot be demonstrated and proved. That is your doctrine of rising of the world of salvation. With this small gap, through this small break, however, the eternal and single world law breaks down again. Forgive me if I raise this objection. Gotama listened quietly, motionless, and now the perfect one spoke, this kind, polite, and clear voice. You have listened well to the teachings, O Brahmin son. It is a credit to you that you have thought so deeply about them. You have found a flaw. Think well about it again. Let me warn you, you who are thirsty for knowledge, against the thicket of opinions and conflict of words. Opinions mean nothing. They may be beautiful or ugly, clever or foolish, which you may have heard, however, is not my opinion, and its goal is not to explain the world to those who are thirsty for knowledge. Its goal is quite different. Its goal is salvation from suffering. That is what Gotama teaches, nothing else. Do not be angry with me, illustrious one, said the young man. I have not spoken to you thus to quarrel with you about words. You are right when you say that opinions mean little, but I say one more thing. I did not doubt you for one moment. Not for one moment did I doubt that you were the Buddha, that you have reached the highest goal, which so many thousands of Brahmins and Brahmin sons are striving to reach. You have done so by your own teaching, in your own way, through thought, through meditation, through knowledge, through enlightenment. You have learned nothing through teachings, and I think, O illustrious one, that nobody finds salvation through teachings. To nobody, O illustrious one, can you communicate in words and teachings what happened to you in the honor of your enlightenment. The teachings of the enlightened Buddha embrace much. They teach much, how to live rightly, how to avoid evil. But there's one thing that is not clear. Worthy instruction does not contain. It does not contain the secret of what the illustrious one himself experienced, be alone among hundreds of thousands. That is what I thought, and I realized when I heard your teachings. That is why I'm going on my way, not to seek another and better doctrine, for I know there is none, but to leave all doctrines and all teachers to reach my goal alone or to die. But I will often remember this day, O illustrious one, and this hour may my eyes beheld a holy man. The Buddha's eyes lowered and his unfathomable face expressed complete equanimity. I hope you are not mistaken in your reasoning, said the illustrious one slowly. May you reach your goal, but tell me, have you seen my gathering of holy men, my many brothers who have sworn allegiance to the teachings? Do you think, O Samana from afar, that it would be better for all these to relinquish the teachings and to return to the life of the world and desires? That thought never occurred to me, cried Siddhartha. May they all follow the teachings. May they all reach their goal. It is for me to judge another life. It is not for me. I must judge it for myself. I must choose and reject. We Samanas seek release from the self, O illustrious one. If I were one of your followers, I feel that it would only be on the surface, and I would deceive myself that I was at peace and I had attained a salvation, while in truth the self could continue to live and grow, for it would have been transformed into your teachings, into my allegiance and love for you, for the community of the monks. Half smiling with imperturbable brightness and friendliness, the Buddha looked steadily at the stranger and dismissed him with a hardly visible gesture. You are clever, O Samana, said the illustrious. You know how to speak cleverly, my friend. Be on your guard against too much cleverness. The Buddha walked away, and his look and half-smile remained imprinted on Siddhartha's memory forever. I have never seen a man and look and smile, sit and walk like that, he thought. I also would like to look and smile, sit and walk like that. So free, so worthy, so restrained, so candid, so childlike and mysterious. Man only looks and walks like that when he has conquered himself. I also will conquer myself. I have seen one man only, thought Siddhartha, before whom I must lower my eyes. I will never lower my eyes before any other man. No other teachings will attract me, since this man's teachings have not done so. The Buddha has robbed me, thought Siddhartha. He has robbed me, yet he has given me something of greater value. He has robbed me of my friend, who believed in me and now believes in him. He was my shadow, and now he's Gotama's shadow, but he has given to me Siddhartha, myself. Alright, we have finished chapter, Gotama, meeting the Buddha. It's not rendering as much as I would like. But anyways, I really enjoyed this chapter, him meeting the illustrious one who is Buddha. You know, it is like a very interesting thing to me, thinking about our own path to enlightenment, or peace, I should say, or figuring out what you want to do with your life. I see for sure that Siddhartha found flaws in the Buddha's teachings, and that is, in it, to seek salvation is to desire something, so that is a flaw, and it drove him mad, and he wants to find himself, I guess. And it's like he doesn't quite understand that he still has this thirst for knowledge, I guess. Alright, let's see. Awakening is not too long, so we're gonna start that. Oh, I like my lip right here. Alright. Awakening. As Siddhartha left the grove in which the Buddha, the perfect one, remained, in which Govinda remained, he left that he had also left his former life behind him in the grove. As he slowly went on his way, his head was full of this thought. He reflected deeply until this feeling completely overwhelmed him. Very relatable. And he reached a point to where he recognized causes. And for recognized causes, he seemed to him is to think. Through thought alone, feelings became knowledge, and are not lost, but became real and began to mature. Siddhartha reflected deeply as he went on his way. He realized that he was no longer a youth, he was now a man. He realized that something had left him, like the old skin that a snake sheds. Something was no longer in him, something that had accompanied him right through his youth and was part of him. This was the desire to have teachers and to listen to their teachings. He had left the last teacher he had met, even he, the greatest and wisest teacher, the holiest, the Buddha. He had to leave him. He could not accept his teachings. Slowly the thinker went on his way and asked himself, what is it that you wanted to learn from teachings and teachers, and although they taught you much, what was it they could not teach you? He thought, it was the self, the character and nature of which I wished to learn. I wanted to rid myself of the self, to conquer it, but I could not conquer it. I could only deceive it. I could only fly from it, could only hide from it. Truly, nothing in the world has accompanied my thoughts as much as the self. This riddle that I live, that I am one and separated and different from everybody else, that I am Siddhartha, and about nothing in this world do I know less about than myself, about Siddhartha. The thinker, slowly going on his way, suddenly stood still, gripped by this thought, and another thought immediately arose from this. It was, the reason why do I not know anything about myself? The reason why Siddhartha has remained alien and unknown to myself is due to one thing, to one single thing. I was afraid of myself. I was fleeing from myself. I was seeking Brahman, Atman. I wished to destroy myself, to get away from myself, in order to find in the unknown innermost the nucleus of all things, Atman, life, the divine, the absolute. But by doing so, I lost myself on the way. Siddhartha looked up and around him. A smile crept over his face, and a strong feeling of awakening from a long dream spread right through his being. Immediately he walked again, quickly, like a man who knows what he has to do. Yes, he thought, breathing deeply. I will no longer try to escape from Siddhartha. I will no longer devote my thoughts to Atman and the sorrows of the world. I will no longer mutilate and destroy myself in order to find a secret beyond the ruins, beneath and behind the ruins. I will no longer study Yoga Veda, Adharana Veda, or asceticism, or any other teachings. I will learn for myself. Being my own pupil, I will learn for myself the secret of Siddhartha. He looked around him as if seeing the world for the first time. The world was beautiful, strange, and mysterious. Here was blue, here was yellow, here was green, sky and river, woods and mountains, all beautiful, all mysterious and enchanting. In the midst of it, he, Siddhartha, the awakened one, on a way to himself. All this yellow and blue, river and wood, passed for the first time across Siddhartha's eyes. It was no longer the magic of Mara. It was no more the veil of Maya. It was no longer meaningless. And the chance of diversities of the appearances of the world, despised by deep-thinking Brahmins who scorned diversity, who sought unity. River was river, and if the one and divine in Siddhartha secretly lived in blue and river, it was just the divine art and intention that there could be yellow, blue, and there sky and wood, and here Siddhartha. Meaning and reality were not hidden somewhere behind things. They were in them, in all of them. How deaf and stupid I have been, he thought, walking on quickly. When anyone reads anything which he wishes to study, he does not despise the letters and punctuation marks, and call them illusion and chance and worthless shells, but he reads them, he studies and loves them, letter by letter. But I, who wish to read the book of the world and the book of my own nature, did presume to despise the letters and signs. I called the world of appearances illusion. I called my eyes and tongue chance. Now it is over. I have awakened. I have indeed awakened and only been born today. But as these thoughts passed through Siddhartha's mind, he suddenly stood still as if a snake lay in his path. Then suddenly, this also was clear to him. He, who was in fact like one who had awakened or was newly born, must begin his life completely afresh. When he left the Jetavana grove that morning, the grove of the illustrious one, already awakened, already on the way to himself, it was his intention and seemed the natural course for him after the years of his asceticism to return to his home and his father. Now, however, in that moment as he stood still, as if a snake lay in his path, the thought also came to him. I am no longer what I was. I am no longer an ascetic, no longer a priest, no longer a Brahmin. What then shall I do at home with my father? Study? Offer sacrifices? Practice meditation? All this is over for me now. Siddhartha stood still, and for a moment an icy chill stole over him. He shivered inwardly like a small animal, like a bird or a hare, when he realized how alone he was. He had been homeless for years and had not felt like this. Now he did feel it previously, when in deepest meditation he was still his father's son. He was a Brahmin of high standing, a religious man. Now he is only Siddhartha, the awakened. Nothing else. He breathed in deeply, and for a moment he shuddered. Nobody was so alone as he. He was no nobleman belonging to any aristocracy, no artisan belonging to any guild, finding refuge in it, or sharing its life and language. He was no Brahmin, sharing the life of the Brahmins, no ascetic belonging to the Samanas. Even the most secluded hermit in the woods was not one and alone. He was also belonged to a class of people. Govinda had become a monk. Thousands of monks were his brothers, wore the same gown, shared his beliefs, and spoke his language. But he, Siddhartha, where did he belong? Whose life would he share? Whose language would he speak? That moment, when the world around him melted away, when he stood alone like a star in the heavens, he was overwhelmed by a feeling of icy despair. He was more firmly himself than ever. That was the last shudder of his awakening, the last pains of birth. Immediately he moved on again, began to walk quickly and impatiently, no longer homewards, no longer to his father, no longer backwards. And ending of part 1. Wow, I find that quite interesting, man, I'm legitimately wondering, here's weird. Alright, well, finished part 1 of Siddhartha. Let's see. I think this part of the awakening, when you go on your own and you cut yourself off from everything, a part of your identity, is very relatable. And I feel like many people, I myself am kind of like getting stuck in that. It's like you denounce everything and yet like you try to come back to your identity or what you feel is your identity. It's here's this. I need to get a haircut. Like needs to be cut a little bit shorter, but yeah, let me just do it like this. So yeah, like this final reading, the part 2 of Siddhartha really just is interesting because he found the dialogue of, or the parts in the book, he starts, you hear his inner monologue and you start feeling his emotions and his fears. And then it was poignant when he said, I've been afraid of myself. And I was like, wow, that's kind of like what I felt, you know, in my own path to enlightenment. So that's kind of interesting. On like relating my own journey to him and I feel as if the next chapter I'll even identify more things that I can relate to. And another thing too that was stuck out to me is like there's so many people that are on their path to journey and they denounce everything in the world. Like they think everything in this world is an illusion and it can be bad, and they don't like, they distance themselves from everything. But then it's like you have to embrace, you know, things that people love, the beauty and the good, and not hate it. Like I think of people that only embrace certain parts of individuals, like certain types of women or certain types of personalities, and that's bad to me as well. So I think the awakening chapter is like brought out from his him realizing like he's met the most wisest teacher in Buddha, and yet then he still didn't feel free. And I found it funny, like he's obviously grown, but then he like finally feel like a man having awakened his inner monologue. So, all right, I'm gonna end the stream now. Hope to catch some of you